I've never really been good at waiting. In general, I'm mostly an impatient person. Once I know what I want, I kind of want it now. So you can imagine that the month of December was pretty rough for me as a child. My sister and I would wait not so patiently for the J.C. Penney's wish book. Anyone else remember that? Before the internet thing. We'd wait for it to come and we'd look through all of the toys and we'd diligently make our lists. And the night before Christmas, I'd almost be like just jumping out of my skin waiting for Santa to come. When I was a kid, December felt like a lifetime. As I got older, the waiting was different, but it was still there. As a teenager, I could hardly wait for New Year's Eve, where we would all go to Puerto del Sol in Madrid, where we lived at the time, to wait for the magical ball to drop. We had 12 grapes in our hand, and you eat one grape for each chime of the clock. It'd be the time that I'd get to see all of my friends after the holidays and the hope of the new year. When we had kids of our own, I could hardly wait for them to wake up to see what Santa had brought. I remember the year that they slept past 5 a.m. and I was awake and waiting for them. I'm pretty sure I was more excited than I was when I was a kid. Okay, well, maybe not. December was the month of waiting. And this year I'm also waiting, but it feels very different. I am waiting for this virus to be over, to feel safe going out again. I am waiting for a vaccine, one that I now know exists, and so that we just have to wait for it to be approved, for it to be distributed, for those who need it most to get it first. And for many of us, it will be waiting for months and months and months until we get it. And then we'll be waiting for enough other people to get it that we can safely gather again. I am waiting right now, dreading truly to see how bad this surge gets. I know that the over 100,000 people in the hospital right now will grow. I know that many of them will die. I know that we are still not at the peak of the Thanksgiving gatherings, and I'm waiting with dread to see how bad this is going to get. I'm waiting for the chaos of this presidential election and administration to be over and for the inauguration to happen. And I am waiting for the country to wake up to the horrors of racism, homophobia, transphobia, xenophobia. I'm waiting for the time when we don't have to mourn deaths due to gun violence. I'm also waiting personally. Last week, I had a COVID scare. I got a rapid test before I was to officiate a wedding, and it came back positive. It was a false positive. A more reliable PCR test revealed that. But the 3 days of waiting, quarantining away from my own wife and my own home, worried who I had exposed and waiting to see if symptoms appeared, those 3 days of waiting to find out that I wasn't sick were excruciating. I know many of you have experienced this waiting as well. And as a family, we are waiting on the slow path of cancer. We are waiting each day that our son has radiation for his thyroid cancer, waiting to see if it's making a difference, waiting for the nausea and the tiredness to pass, waiting until there will be a surgery to remove his tumor, and just waiting for his life to resume on the path that it should be on for a 23-year-old. I hate waiting. December is all about waiting. Cancer is all about waiting. 2020 is all about waiting. Advent is the 4 weeks that precede Christmas, the season when we explore the spiritual and psychological act of waiting. Whether you identify as Christian or not, most of us know the stories, and the lessons that it can teach us about waiting are profound. When I was younger and less mature, you could argue how much really I'm more mature now, but back then I used to make fun a little bit of Advent. I just didn't understand the discipline of it all. I was kind of like, well, we're waiting for Jesus to be born. We're waiting to see if Christmas will arrive. We know it will. We know that Christmas comes every year on December 25th. And then we wait again during Lent for the crucifixion. Well, we know that that happens too. It happens every year on Easter. So it seemed like a relentless cycle of waiting for Jesus's birth and then a few months later waiting for his death. And truly, I didn't get it. I didn't get it. Now I know that Advent is a spiritual practice, an art of waiting, of not being sure what is going to happen, putting ourselves back into the past in the story and what it must have been like then. And understanding that miracles can happen in the most amazing places and situations, like mangers and Zoom calls and Georgia. Truly, it's a countercultural act. Waiting is the opposite of our society's need for immediate gratification. It is understanding that we are not always in control of everything, and patience isn't just a virtue. Sometimes it's a spiritual act of hope. As someone who hated to wait, it was one of my most challenging spiritual practices. One of the most sacred passages of the Christian Bible is the Magnificat. It's the narrative in the Gospel of Luke of Mary speaking to her cousin Elizabeth. See, Elizabeth is pregnant with the child who will become John the Baptist, and Mary is pregnant with the child who will become Jesus Christ. In the first stanza, Mary is acknowledging that she will be remembered as blessed and everyone will know her name. And in the third stanza, she tells of God's promise to change the world through her child, how he will replace the proud with the lowly, the mighty by those who are meek, and those who are rich by those who are hungry. But first, they need to wait. Actually, if you read the beginning of Luke, everyone is waiting. Everyone. Mary and Elizabeth are waiting for their babies to grow. Joseph and Elizabeth's husband are waiting for births. And Joseph in particular is waiting for the truth to be revealed about his scandalized pregnant fiancée. Simeon and Anna, who feature later in the story of Jesus, are waiting. And throughout the book of Luke, all of those people, every single one of them say in one form or another, do not be afraid. I have good news. We as a collective society have never in our lifetimes had to wait as much right now. Collectively have waiting be as relevant as it is right now. We are holding our collective breaths, waiting until we can exhale. We are sitting here literally waiting for the world to change. We are waiting for the metaphorical baby to come and change the trajectory of our current path of destruction. We are waiting for the end of death, for hope, for new life. So, what is waiting in the Advent story? Henry Nouwen, the Dutch Catholic priest, professor, writer, and progressive theologian, says that Advent is with a sense of promise. They are waiting for a seed that has started to grow. This promise gave them hope. And in Mary and Elizabeth, the promise was literally growing in them. And for all of them, the promise was growing for them. Advent reminds us that waiting is not a passive act. Nouwen says that most of us think of waiting as something very passive, a hopeless state determined by events totally out of our hands. The bus is late, you can't do anything about it, you just have to sit there and wait. But this is not a passive waiting. We know that this time, Advent season, and this time in our history is growing from the ground that we are standing on right now. We are changing history right this very minute. Every day it feels like we are seeing a new layer of this story that will be analyzed for years. How we collectively respond to this moment will change who we are in the future. Nouwen says that active waiting means to be present fully in the moment, in the conviction that something is happening where you are and that you want to be present for it. A waiting person is someone who is present to the moment, who believes that this moment is the moment. The truth is that we're going to be waiting still a long time. This is somewhat of an open-ended wait. We want to believe that there's going to be a concrete ending to all of this, in the moment where we can go, aha, this is the moment I was waiting for. This is part of our wish to have control. The idea that the future will go a very specific, defined direction. And that's what makes this waiting so difficult. We want to do the things that will make the desired outcomes more sure to happen. And sadly, we realize over and over and over again that we are just not in control of that. There will not be one moment when we declare this is over. There will be some people who don't get vaccinated. There will be growing knowledge about the vaccine and its issues and benefits. There will be mutations. There will be more and different chaos in our world. There will be more sadness. But waiting is based in hope, and hope is based in optimism. That a baby will be born that will bring light and peace to the world. That we collectively can work to bring more kindness to each other and to our communities. That we can overcome obstacles with science and reason and patience. And that we can use this experience to build a better world with healthcare for all, understanding just how connected we all are, and with more compassion and love. We have hope. Dare I say, even faith, that this waiting will result in goodness. Nouwen says that to wait in this open-ended and hopeful manner is an enormously radical attitude towards life. So is to trust that something that will happen to us that is far beyond our own imaginings. So too is giving up control over our future and letting our hope and faith guide us, not resorting to fear or despair. This moment gives us the opportunity to be actively present to this moment, this absolutely unique and amazing moment. This indeed is a very radical stance toward life in a world preoccupied with control. So this Advent, I encourage on you to draw on the story, all of the stories of hoping and waiting. You don't need to believe in the story of the birth of a Savior in order to do this. You can just think about the birth of a baby. You can use our own Mary and the birth of her baby if you want. The waiting, the hope, the promise. So I wish you hopeful discomfort. I wish you patience as you wait. I wish you kindness for yourself and others as we wait together. I wish you faith that we can turn this historic time into a better future, one filled with the hopes of Mary and Elizabeth and their profound belief all those years ago. The lifting up of the marginalized, the hope for a better future, and the peace, that this peace may spread through the lands. May we actively wait and actively work towards it. Oh, come. Oh, come, Emmanuel. May Emmanuel come to us as love to dwell in all of us, as truth to dwell in all of us, as light to dwell in all of us, and finally as hope to dwell in all of us. So might it be.